Everyone in Kokuro village thought Lola and Tunde were the perfect couple. Lola was calm, kind, and always respectful. Tunde was a well-known teacher, smart, polite, and loved by many. People looked at them and said, "This is true love." Their wedding was like a dream. Neighbors danced, children laughed, and elders gave blessings. It looked like the start of a beautiful life. But what no one saw was what happened behind their closed door. From the outside, Lola smiled. She waved at neighbors, cooked for village events, and supported Tunde like a loyal wife. But at home, things were different. Tunde, the man who smiled in public, changed in private. He became cold, controlling. His words were sharp like knives. Sometimes he would shout over little things. Other times, he would ignore Lola completely, as if she didn't exist. Lola stayed silent. She didn't tell her friends or family. People loved Tunde too much. They wouldn't believe her. She told herself it was just stress, just pressure from work. She kept hoping he'd go back to the man she fell in love with. But deep inside, her heart was breaking, piece by piece. Every day, she looked in the mirror and saw less of herself. What started as love now felt like a prison. Still, she smiled for the world, because in a village like Kokuro, appearances meant everything. And Lola, she was too proud to let anyone see her pain. But pain has a way of rising, and soon it would. The whole village of Kokuro was buzzing with excitement. Tunde had just been promoted to head teacher, a big deal in their small town. To celebrate, he planned a grand party in their compound. Bright lights were hung on trees, music filled the air, and people from nearby villages came to eat, dance, and praise Tunde. Lola, as always, worked behind the scenes with quiet grace. She made sure the jollof rice was hot, the drinks were cold, and everyone had enough to eat. Guests were laughing, clapping, calling Tunde a man of honor. And Lola, she smiled through her tiredness, carrying trays, cleaning up spills, checking on the children. No one noticed how hard she worked. They just expected it. Then, in the middle of the celebration, something small happened. A plate slipped from Lola's hand. It wasn't even a full plate, just a piece of chicken that fell and stained someone's dress. Gasps flew through the crowd, but before anyone could react, Tunde turned around with eyes full of fire. "What is wrong with you, Lola?" he shouted. She tried to explain, to apologize, but it was too late. In front of all the guests, without warning, Tunde slapped her, hard. A sharp sound cut through the music. The drums stopped. People froze with food halfway to their mouths. The air went silent. Lola stood still, holding her cheek. Her eyes were wide, full of shock and pain. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She just stood there, in front of everyone, humiliated. Some guests looked away. Others whispered. A few shook their heads. But no one said anything. No one helped. Tunde adjusted his shirt like nothing happened and walked back to his seat. "She's always careless," he muttered. Lola slowly bent down, picked up the fallen plate, and walked back inside the house without a word. The party tried to go on, but it had already changed. People danced, but their eyes kept glancing at the door she walked through. The laughter was quieter now. The food didn't taste the same. Inside, Lola stood by the kitchen sink, staring at nothing. Her hands were shaking, but her face was calm. Too calm. She didn't let the tears fall. Not yet. She just kept repeating in her mind, in front of everyone. He did it, in front of everyone. That night, the party ended late. The last guests left with questions in their heart, but no courage on their lips. Lola finished cleaning in silence. She didn't say a word to Tunde. He didn't say a word to her either. But something had broken, not just the plate. Something deeper, something louder than the slap, and it would not stay quiet for long. The moment Tunde's hand hit Lola's face, time seemed to stop. The music went quiet. The drums stopped. Even the wind held its breath. Everyone at the party froze. Plates hung in the air. Conversations died mid-sentence. Children stopped playing. You could hear the night insects more than the people now. Lola stood still, her face turned slightly to the side, her cheek already turning red. Her eyes filled with tears, but they didn't fall. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She didn't run. She just stood there, shocked, not just from the pain, but from the shame. Tunde's voice broke the silence, loud, angry, and sharp like a knife. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone," he shouted, pointing at her like she was a stranger. Lola looked at him, her eyes searching his face, almost asking, why? But he didn't meet her eyes. He just shook his head and turned away. People began to whisper. Some covered their mouths. Others stared at the ground, pretending not to see. No one stepped forward. Not a friend, not a family member, not even the village elders. The same people who praised Lola minutes ago now looked at her like she was the problem. She should have been more careful, one woman whispered. But still, in front of all of us, another replied. The shame was heavy. It wrapped around Lola like a cold cloth. Her heart thudded in her chest. It felt like her world had cracked in two, and everyone just watched. Still, she didn't cry. She slowly walked back inside the house, her steps quiet, her head down. She didn't defend herself. She didn't scream, not because she was weak, but because the pain was too deep for words. Inside, she sat on the bed, staring at the floor. Her face still burned, but her heart burned more. Tunde came in later, acting like nothing happened. He didn't say sorry. He didn't look guilty. He just changed his shirt and lay down like it was a normal day. Outside, the guests tried to bring back the music, but the joy was gone. The laughter was fake now. The drums played, but no one danced the same. Everyone had seen it. Everyone felt it, but no one said anything. The slap was loud, yes, but the silence that followed? That silence screamed even louder. And in that silence, something inside Lola started to wake up. She didn't know what it was yet. But one thing was clear. The woman who was slapped in front of the village was not the same woman who would rise again. Not anymore. After the party ended and the noise faded, Lola was still moving. The last guest had gone home. The music had stopped, and the lights outside were slowly going off. Tunde had gone to bed without a word, as if nothing had happened. But Lola, she stayed awake. Her face was calm, too calm. Not a single tear, not a single complaint, just silence. A heavy silence that filled the room like smoke. She picked up empty cups and plates. She swept the floor slowly, even though her hands were tired. Inside, she felt numb, but her body moved like it was on autopilot, as if cleaning was easier than thinking. By midnight, the house was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels almost scary. Tunde was fast asleep in the bedroom, snoring like a man who had no shame. Lola stood in the living room, looking around. Then, she walked to the corner, lifted an old mat, and pulled out a small wooden box. The box was old, dusty, and a little cracked. She hadn't touched it in years. It was something she had hidden when she got married, back when she still had dreams, back when she still had hope. She sat on the floor, her knees pulled close, and slowly opened it. Inside were pieces of the woman she used to be. There was a photograph of her as a teenager, smiling brightly, wearing her mother's wrapper. There was a journal, pages filled with her handwriting, her poems, her secrets, her prayers. There was a letter from her younger sister, now living far away. But the thing that made her hand pause was the small flash drive. It had everything: her school certificates, her old CV, and a video she had recorded years ago. A video she had never shown anyone. She watched it again on her phone. In the video, a younger Lola looked into the camera and said, "If you're watching this, you forgot who you are. But I remember. You were brave, you were powerful, and you don't deserve pain." Tears rolled down Lola's face, quiet and warm. She closed the box, stood up, and went to her wardrobe. She brought out her white wedding dress. It was clean, perfectly folded, and smelled like old perfume. She stared at it for a long time, then placed it beside the box. She didn't speak out loud. She didn't need to. Her actions were louder than words. That night, Lola didn't sleep. She sat on the floor with the wooden box beside her, thinking, planning. The slap had broken something, but it had also woken something up, something strong, something bold, something that had been sleeping for too long. And now, in the quiet of midnight, that something was finally ready. Nobody in the village could have guessed what she would do next, but the silence of that room was just the beginning of a storm. The sun hadn't even fully risen when smoke started rising from the center of Kokoro village. At first, people thought someone was burning rubbish, but as they got closer, they saw something different, something strange. Right there in the middle of the square, a fire was burning, not wild, not out of control, but calm and strong, and standing in front of it was Lola. She looked different. She wasn't the quiet, shy wife they all knew. She stood tall, her eyes steady, her face calm, like someone who had made peace with a storm. In her hands, she held something white and soft, her wedding dress. She didn't speak, she didn't shout. She simply walked toward the fire and threw the dress in. The flames caught it quickly, eating the fabric, turning the pure white into dark smoke. Gasps rose from the small crowd that had gathered. People whispered to each other, unsure of what they were seeing. Then she knelt down and placed a folded piece of paper beside the fire. The wind moved it slightly, but it didn't blow away. It sat there like it was waiting to be read. Someone picked it up after she walked away. The note was short, written in Lola's neat handwriting. It said, "I asked for love. You gave me shame. Now I give you a message." The message wasn't just for Tunda. It was for everyone. For the aunties who told her to be quiet. For the uncles who said, "That's how marriage is." For the friends who saw the slap and looked away. For the whole village that stayed silent when she was humiliated. Lola didn't cry. She didn't break down. She didn't scream. She just walked away slowly, barefoot, with her head held high. Tunda heard the noise and came out of the house. When he saw the fire and the empty space where Lola should have been, something in his chest tightened. He didn't say anything. He didn't dare touch the letter. All he could do was watch as the smoke rose higher into the sky. The wedding dress was gone now, but the message remained. More villagers gathered. Some shook their heads. Others stood in silence. But deep inside, many of them felt something they hadn't felt before. Respect, not just for Lola's bravery, but for the truth she showed them. The truth they had all ignored for too long. By mid-morning, the story had already started to spread. From house to house, from mouth to mouth, the people of Kokoro began to talk, not just about the fire, but about the woman who lit it, not out of hate, but out of power. The fire spoke louder than words. And Lola, she didn't disappear in shame. She walked away in strength. As the sun rose over Kokoro village, phones began buzzing one after the other. First one message, then 10, then 100. A video was spreading, fast. No one knew who recorded it, but within an hour, almost everyone in the village had seen it. It was Lola. She sat in front of a plain wall wearing a simple dress, her face calm but strong. Her eyes were tired, but they didn't look weak. They looked ready. She stared straight into the camera and said, "You all saw the slap. Now see me rise." There was a pause, a heavy pause. Then she continued, her voice steady. "For years I smiled when I wanted to scream. I served when I wanted to rest. I stayed silent when I should have spoken. That ends today." She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She spoke like someone who had found her voice again. And this time, she wasn't going to let anyone take it away. "You clapped for him while I cleaned your plates. You laughed while I was hurting. You turned away when I was slapped, but not anymore. This is my voice, and I'm not hiding it again." She stood up at the end of the video, placed her hand on her chest, and said one last line that hit every heart watching. "I am Lola. I am not your shame. I am your wake-up call." By midday, people were gathering in small groups, talking in hushed tones. "Did you see it?" "Yes." "It gave me chills. She's so brave." Even the market women were playing the video out loud. Children watched it with wide eyes. The old men under the tree fell silent when it played. Tunde saw it too. He sat on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, face pale. He watched her words again and again. He had shouted at her in front of the village. Now she was speaking back to the entire world, without raising her voice, without lifting a hand, and she was louder than he had ever been. People who once ignored Lola were now looking at her with new eyes. Women whispered, "She did what we couldn't." Men shifted uncomfortably, wondering what their wives might say next. The air in Kokoro had changed. It wasn't just a village anymore. It was a place that had just seen truth, raw and clear, through one woman's voice. And Lola, she didn't post the video for revenge. She posted it for freedom. Not just hers, but for every woman who thought silence was the only option. Her voice didn't just shake the village, it woke it up. The morning after the video went viral, Lola was gone. No one saw her leave. No bags were packed at the front door. No taxi came to pick her up. It was like she had just disappeared. Her room was clean, the bed made, and her wedding ring left neatly on top of a folded scarf. The same scarf she used to wear when she served guests at Tunda's parties. The whole village started talking. "She's gone to Ibadan," one woman said at the market. "I heard her cousin lives there." No, another whispered. "She joined a women's group that helps people like her. A secret group. very powerful women. Some even said she left the country. The truth was, no one really knew where Lola had gone, but everyone was talking like they did. Her name was on every tongue. Her video still circled, shared again and again, especially among the younger women. In just one day, she had become a legend, a woman who took her pain, her shame, and turned it into a message that burned brighter than fire. And in the middle of it all was Tunde, alone. His house, once filled with laughter, visitors, and praise, was now silent. No one came to greet him anymore. The neighbors avoided eye contact. His students stopped greeting him in the street. Some even crossed the road when they saw him coming. Even the village elders didn't invite him to meetings anymore. No one wanted to be seen with the man who slapped Lola, the woman the whole village now saw as a symbol of strength. Children passing by pointed at the house. That's where it happened, they said. The walls felt colder. The curtains stayed shut. The air was heavy with shame. Tunde didn't sleep well anymore. At night, he sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the door, almost expecting her to walk in, but she never did. Her silence haunted him more than any argument ever could, and her voice, her strong, steady voice from that video, played in his head like a drum that refused to stop. I am Lola. I am not your shame. I am your wake-up call. Even his own relatives didn't defend him. His mother stopped calling. His brothers told him, "You did this to yourself." And the house? It became a warning. People started using it as an example. Treat your wife right unless you want your home to become like Tunde's, they'd say. Rumors about Lola kept spreading. Some hoped she'd return. Others feared what she might do next. But deep down, most people were inspired. Lola had left, yes, but she had also left something behind. A spark, a voice, a reminder that silence doesn't last forever. She vanished from sight, but her presence had never been louder. It had been almost 6 months since Lola disappeared from Kokuro village. Her name still came up in conversations, but not as often as before. Some people thought she had moved on. Others assumed her story was over, but they were wrong. One Saturday evening, televisions across Nigeria lit up with a breaking news segment. The anchor smiled and said, "Tonight, we bring you the story of a woman who turned her pain into purpose." Then Lola appeared on the screen. There she was, calm, graceful, and glowing in a sky-blue blouse. Her voice was soft but clear, the same voice that once shook a village now speaking to the whole country. Behind her stood a clean, simple building with white walls, surrounded by a few trees and benches. Above the entrance, a bold sign read, "Don't suffer in silence. Speak louder than pain." It was a women's shelter, a safe home for women who had been abused, hurt, silenced, just like she had once been. The reporter walked with Lola through the halls, rooms filled with beds, a kitchen with hot meals, a small library, and a counseling room where women could finally speak without fear. "This is more than a shelter," Lola said. "It's a beginning." She shared how she spent the last few months building this space. She got support from women's groups, kind strangers, and even people from Kokuro who sent her quiet messages of thanks. The money she had saved, the flash drive with her documents, it all led her here. "This place," she said, "is for every woman who thinks she's alone. I want her to know she's not." The news clip showed some of the women who had found safety in the shelter. One had a baby on her lap. Another held a small book and smiled shyly. They didn't say much, but their eyes told enough. Back in Kokuro, people gathered around TVs and phones, watching in silence. The market women stood still. Some of them cried. The young girls looked at the screen like they were seeing a hero. Even the elders nodded slowly, finally understanding what Lola had become. Tunde watched it too, alone. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just watched. Lola didn't mention his name. She didn't need to. Her actions had already written the truth. That night, social media exploded. Her name trended nationwide. Journalists called her the voice of the silenced. Women across the country sent messages thanking her for her courage. Some even shared their own stories for the first time. And in the middle of it all, Lola remained calm. She didn't want fame. She just wanted freedom for herself and for others. And now, the woman who once sat in silence was helping others rise from the same darkness. Lola wasn't just a survivor, she had become a symbol. Tunde used to be one of the most respected men in Kokuro. People greeted him with smiles. Children ran up to him calling, "Teacher Tunde?" He He walked through the village like a man made of pride, head high, shoulders straight, always wearing a clean shirt and a confident smile. But after the slap, everything changed. At first, he tried to pretend like nothing happened. He still went to work, still walked with that same proud look, but it didn't last. Parents began removing their children from his class. Some mothers whispered, "How can we trust him to teach our sons how to be men?" Others said even worse. Within a few weeks, the school principal called him into the office. "We've been getting complaints." The man said quietly, "It's best you step down for now." Tunde didn't argue. He just nodded and walked away, his heart pounding. Back home, the silence grew heavier. Neighbors stopped greeting him. The same people who once praised him now crossed the street to avoid him. His compound, once full of visitors, was now empty. No more greetings, no more respect. The proud man of yesterday had become the disgrace of today. The worst part wasn't even the job loss or the whispers. It was Lola. Every time her face appeared on TV or social media, something twisted inside him. He watched her interview, the one where she stood in front of the shelter, smiling, strong, full of peace. She didn't say his name, but her presence alone felt like thunder in his ears. "You all saw the slap. Now see me rise." Those words haunted him over and over again. He sat on the couch one night, alone, staring at the screen. Her voice played again, soft but powerful, and finally, something inside him cracked. Tunde broke down. He dropped the remote. His head fell into his hands, and for the first time since that night, he cried. Not soft tears. Real, heavy sob. The kind of crying that came from deep shame, regret, realization. He remembered how Lola used to serve him food with both hands, how she'd smile even when tired, how she stayed quiet even when hurt, and he, in front of everyone, turned her into a joke. Now, she had become a light, a leader, a symbol, and he had become the warning. Some villagers said he deserved everything. Some said maybe he had changed, but no one forgot. His name, once connected to respect, was now tied to shame. Even the house he lived in was quiet, full of memories he couldn't escape. The pride was gone, the applause had stopped. Now all Tunde had left was regret. 1 year after everything, Kokoro village was never the same. The story of Lola had spread far beyond its dusty roads. Her video, her shelter, her name, it had become a wave of change. But no one expected what happened next. She came back. It was a warm Saturday morning. The village square was full of colour. Banners, chairs, drums, and excited chatter. A women's rally had been announced, and the crowd gathered early. Girls wore t-shirts with her picture. Women held signs that read, "We are not afraid anymore." Songs filled the air. And then she walked in,